Hi, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Singing podcast. My name is Conor Ryan. I'm the host. And this is a track I made as I'm using now as the intro. It's called Get It. So I took a song by Ella Fitzgerald. There she is. How are you, Ella? It's called Blue Skies. And I took it and sampled the track itself, played some bass in it, cut it up and made it the way I wanted to. So now that's the new intro. Here we go. Excellent. I really like that track, actually. I mean, I love the original track, Blue Skies, and I just like the way that it sounds there. I also sampled a snare drum that I played here in my room and just kind of cut it up in the way I wanted it. If you want to listen to that, you can head over to Bandcamp. And Bandcamp is fantastic for artists, really cares for its artists, and all the proceeds, well, most of it, I think Bandcamp take a small percentage, but nothing like what Spotify does. Spotify is just a bunch of shit. Anyway, so I usually do some interviews and I get quite nervous speaking for a long period of time. I tend to kind of lose my track or lose my train of thought and stuff. So I really like doing the interviews where I just listen and learn from someone else and just listen intently and ask them questions and kind of maneuver the conversation in ways that is beneficial to the listener. But I am taking this opportunity of having now some sort of a platform to talk about some personal stories as well of me as a singer, performer, and what I've gone through and things like that. And so it's going to be a bit different today. And so I'm just going to do, so a disclaimer is I might curse during this. So if you're offended by cursing, sorry, not sorry. It's just a part of my vocabulary. Obviously, I don't do it when I'm interviewing people, as it's not very professional in a sense of like they might use clips for promotional purposes, and me cursing on it might not be the best idea, But anyway, that's the first disclaimer. And the other disclaimer is my opinions on this topic are completely my own opinions. And I don't deem anyone any less for doing TV reality show kind of singing competitions. There have been many people who have been very successful doing it, and there's many people that have had very good experiences of it. But I'm just not one of them, and I want to tell you my story. So I'm just going to take a sip of coffee. Beautiful. Right. So just a bit of an intro to who I am, as people might not know me. This is, an opportunity to tell you kind of where I came from. So I came from Limerick. That's my hometown. Fantastic city in Ireland, full of artists, full of amazing people. And yes, so I started very young with music, with singing. My whole family is very big into music and musical theatre, and my dad was a producer and a director and had his own theatre school that he used to run in Limerick. And so my mum also worked there. She was a choreographer. I taught there for a long time, but also was going to classes every Saturday when I was younger. And also to another stage school run by my aunt. My aunt, I have to say that in Germany because people, if I say aunt here when I'm teaching English, people go, aunt? Is that not a little bug? I'm like, yeah, it is, but aunt in Limerick and in Ireland means aunt. And they all learn the Cambridge or the Oxford English, so I have to be very proper. Anyway, so my aunt also runs actually a theatre school in Limerick as well, which I used to go to classes since I was about 4 years old, for about 11 years. And that was every year doing productions and musicals and things like that. And so I grew up in a musical theatre family. We were putting on productions. And then once I got to school, once I was about maybe 13 years old, when I got into secondary school, my whole world kind of opened up into the world of rock music, pop music, kind of singer-songwriters, things that I wouldn't have listened to when I was younger. And it was opened up by a very good friend of mine, a couple of very good friends of mine, Alan Keary, Cian Scanlon, Jason Reedy, and a guy, Alan Keary's brother then, Dara Keary, used to show me records of like Prince and Frank Zappa and Michael Jackson, Joni Mitchell. And my singing teacher at the time, Maura Keary Scanlon, she also took me to my first live gig. And my first live gig that I saw was Rufus Wainwright. And if you don't know Rufus Wainwright, I would say right after this podcast, or even now, you want to pause it and go and listen to him, be my guest. He is by far the best, in my opinion, one of the best male singers on the planet. He has a way in which he resonates his voice that is like nothing I've ever heard. People might not necessarily like him. I think that's why he's kind of not known. And he's a bit underrated. I mean, his songwriting, I mean, he's been going so long, and he has some incredible songs, very untypical kind of songwriting. And now he's gone off and he's done some operas and things like that. He's very, very interesting. Anyway, that was my first gig. And that kind of opened up the world for me. I started to listen to Joni Mitchell and got into Jeff Buckley. And then I found my muse. Yeah, that's a bit of a pun now, because actually it is the band Muse, Matt Bellamy. And I found my ideal voice that I felt I was able to relate to, that I wanted to learn how he sang. I mean, I would say Matt Bellamy is one of the perfect examples of a strong male mix voice. And if you don't know what mix voice is, I'm not really going to give my definition, because it's such a contested definition, or contested word that is thrown around in the singing world. That just kind of means a high register, and not using your, let's say, your head voice or your kind of light voice, your CT dominant voice, but it's still engaging the TA muscle, which is allowing for kind of thickness and gravity and strength on your voice. And basically that's what he has, and that's what I used to listen to and I loved. And that took me down the road of listening to, System of a Down, Metallica, Tom York, Radiohead. And I mean, that was my life back then. But with that, because I had been training in classical technique, so I also was singing in choirs as a bass once my voice broke. But I was also training as like a baritone for a long time. But when I was listening then, when I used to go home after singing lessons, I would listen to music and singers, male singers that were really singing in their top register. And I was wondering how they did that. And I used to mimic them. And that's really where I found my mix. I found my strength. And it was by mimicking, obviously coming from a healthy, balanced voice from classical technique. I don't think I would have been able to really find that if I hadn't had that kind of healthy voice technique that I'd been training with. But anyway, yeah, so that's me. And then I went off and I did some original music, and then started to gig a lot around in Limerick, some jazz bands. When I left school, I got straight into a jazz trio, and fell in love with jazz. Obviously, my cousin was singing jazz, my aunt was singing jazz, and so I used to love that, and that's where I kind of found my passion, which was in jazz music. And obviously that brought me down to the road of neo soul and a bit of funk and a bit of jazz fusion, a bit of R&B and all that kind of stuff. And then I got into a band. Sorry, I know I'm talking a lot now, but stay with me, because it's going to get juicy very, very soon. So so that got me into funk music, and then I started to play keyboards and backing vocals in a band, a kind of funk reggae crossover fusion band, and we did quite well actually in Limerick, leading armies A bunch of 6 guys, and we used to sing harmonies and write our own music. We went to Canada, we did a bit of a tour in Ireland, we did some EPs, and it was all great crack. It was fantastic, But during that time, so this is where I'm going to get to the point of the podcast. I'm going to just take a small little break now and take a lovely sip of this lovely coffee. Oh, Jesus. So the point of the podcast, why I'm making it, is because I want to explain to you my experience on The Voice of Ireland. So back in 2011, I was given some advice from a very trustworthy person to go and audition for this TV show, this new TV show coming to Ireland called The Voice of Ireland. At that point, I didn't realise it was a franchise. I didn't realise that there was more The Voice, like Netherlands and all this kind of stuff. And now it's a huge franchise. But when it came to Ireland first, it was new. And I said, yeah, okay, excellent. It could be an interesting way to get maybe some national exposure. Who knows what happens? And so I went up and did the preliminary auditions. And then I went up and did the blind audition. I was invited to it. And so the blind audition, I went up with a very good friend of mine, Lisa, and then my cousin Mark, my cousin Andrew, and my friend Neil. And they all came up and supported me, and it was great. And I went up and I sang At Last. And At Last wasn't on the list of songs that they send you. So they send you a list of songs, about 60 songs, and say, here, pick from that. And I was kind of unhappy with the selection, because at that point I was singing a lot of jazz. So I was like, I don't know if my voice really suits any of these songs. So I said, look, I want to sing this. They came back to me. I think there was a bit of back and forth. They were a bit tough on kind of picking the songs from just the list. And I said, look, no, I want to sing this. And whatever happened, I can't remember exactly, but they said, okay, yeah, no problems, sing that. So I was happy. So I went up and I sang it. And it was the first series. And I was the first person in the series to get all 4 chairs to turn around. And if you don't know what the blind auditions are in The Voice of Ireland, they're like, they're kind of getting rid of the aesthetic point of view in a sense of like how you look, or your age, or your gender, or whatever it is. They kind of just listen to the voice, which is a cool concept in itself. It's different. They were focusing on just the voice. I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, I went up and I sang the song, and the 4 chairs turned around, and it was great. I was completely dumbfounded. I didn't expect that. I think they were a bit shocked because it was a female song, and I also had a bit of a high voice when I used my falsetto stuff. It was quite strong, so I think they were more curious than anything. And the 4 judges were Cian Egan from Westlife, Niall Bresnan from the Blizzards, Sharon Corr from the Corrs, and Brian Kennedy from Brian Kennedy. And so they all turned around and said, hey, look, now you have the chance to pick, the ball is in your court, the game is yours. Yeah, so then I was going, okay, this is crazy. And, I had been given advice from my dad, who was up there as well, who had been watching outside. And he told me that Brian Kennedy was only picking good people. And I kind of listened to my dad's advice. And when I saw Brian Kennedy had turned around, I went, oh, great, he's only picking good people. I must get on his team because I need to be good, which was the wrong decision and the wrong intent to have. But that's what I was when I was 21. I was like that. Anyway, so I picked Brian Kennedy, and you can see on the video, I think he was shocked that I picked him anyway. Not that I picked him, but more so I think that maybe Niall Bresnan and Sharon had more kind of constructive things to say for their feedback, and probably should have went with one of those, as I think they might have put me in a bit of a different direction. Anyway, picked Brian Kennedy, and that was grand. And then I got up so into the battle stages. I was put up against a guy called Richie Hayes, who is well known in Dublin. He is on the kind of panto scene and really well loved in Dublin. Also had some sort of a joke going between himself and Niall Bresnan, and had some connection with Brian Kennedy. So there was really no massive chance of me really getting through, because this guy had a great voice and he had a great personality. And this is kind of what I want to bring the podcast to. I think you need to remember, and I think I think you need to remember that when you do any sort of like TV reality or competition or even on tours and stuff, I think you need to know that you have to play the game. And what do I mean about that? Or what do I mean by the game? The game is something that you need to show that you're a likable character, that you have attributes that can be used for your unique selling point. And when I was that age, I think I was a bit too content with my band down in Limerick. And even though I was looking for some national exposure, I wasn't necessarily there to win. And a lot of the contestants were there to win. And so that was kind of my downfall. Looking back now, maybe having a bit of a better intent might have allowed me to go further on in the competition. But anyway, that's what it is. That's what it was. Yeah, so I want to say this, like, I'm going to, hammer it home that if you want to do this thing of going on to do a singing competition, which I know a lot of people that I know have already done it and they've had good experiences and bad experiences, but I think the main thing to remember is that if you do it, you need to play the game. And I didn't play the game. And the game is like Facebook, and the game is being loud, and I wasn't loud. And on camera, off camera, I wasn't necessarily showing my personality because I was a bit afraid. I think I was also a bit ashamed and a bit embarrassed to go back to Limerick to my band members who we were all about the music, and we were listening to ELO and the Beatles and things like that in a garage somewhere, just chilling out. And I think I was a bit embarrassed about the fact that I was going off and trying to do like I don't know, trying to get a step ahead by doing a bit of a cheap way of going to The Voice and stuff. Anyway, that was a bit of an internal conflict. That's what it was. Anyway, I'm going to get to the point. I keep saying anyway, don't I? Okay. So the blind audition was aired, and 2 weeks after the blind audition was aired, I got an email from a guy, from a producer from Dublin. And this guy was a lovely dude, completely legit, and had been working as a producer, songwriter in Dublin for many years. And he contacted me saying, look, I saw your audition, really liked what you did, love your voice, and think that you might have the voice that I'm looking for to go on a project that I'm working on. And I was, again, young, and I went, wow, crazy, yeah, producers contacting me, amazing. And I said, what's the project? And he said, well, I'm putting forward a song for the Eurovision. I said, wow, okay, the Eurovision. And instantly I was like, oh no, the Eurovision is so embarrassing and, blah, blah, blah. But then I was kind of like reflecting on it, kind of going, dude, this is international exposure. You were looking to get national, and this is an opportunity. Don't be stupid, man. Go and do it. So I said, yes, absolutely. Went up, sang the song for him. It was a great song, like an epic rock song called Here I Am. And he loved it, and he said, excellent, let's do this. I said, brilliant, let's go for it. Fab. And went up, did a photo shoot, recorded the song. Everything was ready. Everything was done. Everything was like, happening. And, we were having great conversations. And he was telling me that the next step is to go on The Late Late Show. And The Late Late Show then, they have the show. The Late Late Show is a late show on a Friday night in Ireland, kind of like... the Ellen Show, not the Ellen Show, but like the Late Late Show with James Corden in America and stuff. Like, it's that kind of national exposure stuff. So I was very excited. And so that was going to be the next step. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So what happened was a couple of days later, I guess it was a couple of days. I don't think it was any longer than a couple of days. So I was contacted again by Greg, and he told me, look, I have some bad news. And I said, oh God, what is it? I really didn't know. And he said, well, look, man, unfortunately, Universal aren't allowing you out of your contract. And so if you don't know, and I'm not sure what it's like these days, or I'm not like now or in other competitions, but when you get past, let's say, the blind audition in the Voice, if you want to move further, if you want to go to the battle stages, you have to sign this contract with Universal and Shinawil, the producers of the show, to say that you will not work for 8 months. From signing this contract for 8 months, you won't release any original stuff. You won't do anything that might, use your position on The Voice as leverage for you to make money or for you to get publicity other than you being on The Voice. And so that was the contract we signed. And I remember signing it thinking, my God, this might be a really bad decision. But it was kind of like they caught us at the moment of like the pie was on the window. The steam was going up. We could smell it. And we were just about to eat the pie. And then they said, but if you eat the pie, you can't eat for another 8 months. And at that point, I think all of us were like, yeah, just give us the pie. Just give us the pie. Come on, I just want to eat the pie. And so that's what it was. And so Greg said, the producer said, look, sorry, man, it's a no-go. They're not allowing you out of your contract. There's no way. They're being very, very stern about it. There's no way that you're getting out of it. And I went, oh, man. I said, fuck me. I said, that's it then. Okay. And he said, look, I'm really sorry, but that's the way it is. And I'll tell you, I was heartbroken. You know, I never imagined in my life that I'd be going onto the Late Late Show and like going towards maybe Eurovision kind of stuff. Like that's not a goal that I had. But it was an opportunity that presented itself and I really was excited. And so anyway, a couple of weeks later or a couple of months later, the Late Late Show, the night of the Late Late Show live broadcast came on. And I watched it and the song came on and it was another guy wearing the same clothes that I was going to wear and singing the song that I was going to sing. And I can't remember, I can't really even exactly explain how I felt because it was never a life goal, but it felt so painful. Oh, I can hear my cat. Here, hold on a second. No, my poor cat was outside in the living room, screaming to get in. He's in now. He's grand. Okay. So anyway, as I said, it felt painful. It wasn't so nice. And I really felt that because the other thing was that there was a guy called Ryan O'Shaughnessy who was also on the same series, in the same show that I was on in that year, that also went off and did Britain's Got Talent. And there was some way, somehow I heard that he was able to break his contract because I have no idea. Because, you know, he was very good. He wrote his own songs, but he was also, I mean, he was one of those guys that was competitive. And I remember there was a point in just before the battle stages where I was getting nervous. I was on my own. I was kind of like, you know, I wanted to kind of relax and I was old enough, I was 21, so I decided to get a Heineken. Just a small one, just a small little bottle at the bar. And I remember going to the hallway where a lot of the contestants were and I had my bottle of Heineken. And, you know, I didn't give a shit. I mean, in a sense, like, that was me. I was going to sing anyway, but Ryan O'Shaughnessy then called me out in front of maybe 10 or 15 people and made me feel incredibly embarrassed. And I remember just going completely red and completely, at that point, I wasn't able to retaliate. I wasn't able to say, well, look, man, fuck off. This is me. You know, you don't need to drink a bottle of beer, but maybe I do. And, you know, I guess he was looking at it from a professional point of view. I was looking at it from like my point of view in the sense that I needed to relax and stuff. And I really liked having a little, you know, a bottle of beer. And anyway, that was that. So he went off and broke his contract and was able to go off into the Britain's Got Talent. And I was there kind of thrown to the wayside, kind of saying, no, you can't. And a massive opportunity for me to maybe get a kickstart on my career just kind of fell away. And that's it. And I've made my peace with it. You know what I mean? It's not something that I'm crying about every day, but it's something that I think is important to talk about because, you know, it was a way in which that I thought that it could have been something that could have, you know, as I said, kickstart my career into maybe making a career and making a living off being a singer. And that would have been a massive opportunity, and it didn't happen because of a contract. And unfortunately, the contract needed to be signed to go off and do the battle stage. But actually, the contact that I had from the producer came after the blind audition, which means that if I hadn't signed the contract and went off and did the battle stages, it actually wouldn't have mattered because he was looking at it from the blind audition, the first one, when I sang it last. So it really was a kick in the teeth. And I really was annoyed about it back then. And it's something that I didn't tell a lot of people. And I remember being in a car on the way back home from a gig with a friend of mine, Shiva Brock. And I remember telling her all of this. And she was like, dude, you have to say this. You need to tell people about this. And I remember thinking, yeah, okay, but I don't want to be using it as an excuse to show that I didn't get far in my career because of, of something. I didn't want to make excuses. And so it was something that I felt a lot of shame for, and it's something that I shouldn't have felt a lot of shame for, and I should have been capable of talking about it. And a lot of my friends might not even know this story. I can't even remember who I said it to. It was such I probably should remember because it was a select few, but I can't because it was so small. And I didn't make it public. Anyway, what my point of the podcast is that I want to explain to people that if you are going to go off and do these career not online but TV broadcast reality TV singing competitions, just know that there's going to be probably a point where you're going to have to sign a contract. You might not get to sing the song that you want to sing. You need to play the game, and if you're not up for playing the game, you need to realize that the person beside you that is playing the game is probably going to go on further than you. And it's just a bit of a tip for people. It's also just trying to get this off my chest, allow you into my mind a small bit, allow you into my world, and to get you used to who I am. And that's it. And I'll be doing some more of these single podcast ones, not too many, but I think, I don't mind now talking to you. I really appreciate that you took the time to listen to this and that you're interested, and I hope you if you have any questions, if you want some more detail about something, please get on to me. I'm here for sure. So now I'm just looking at the time. I've done this under 30 minutes, and that's fantastic. That's what I wanted to do. So what's going to happen next is I'm going to release a 2-part podcast with a guy called Matt P. Thorns, who is the creator, and he owns his own company in London called Music Alignment, which is an artist development consultant agency. And he works with artists to develop their image and their sound and their business. He's a very interesting guy, really nice dude to talk to, and a vocal coach, and just very cool. And then the next one will then be another 2-part podcast with a woman called Linda Baliro, and she is the author of Being a Singer, The Art, Craft and Science. And she brought out this book that is something that I bought a couple of months ago, and it's really helped me. It's for singing students, it's kind of like the next best thing to having a vocal coach in the room with you, as it gives like self-assessments, debriefs, explanations of why you do the exercises, and also, explanations of the intricacies of why we're doing a g or an and example lessons in it. And for singing teachers, it's great to kind of see from a singing teacher's point of view how to work with a student, and also there's great interviews in it, like from the likes of Dr. Ingo Tietze, and it's all backed up by voice science, neuroscience, and the anatomy of the voice. It's really interesting. So Jesus, I'm wrecked now after doing that. I don't know how Blind Boy and some other people that just do single podcasts do it for so long. Anyway, I'm happy. I've said what I needed to say, and yes, I feel good about that now. It was a nice little solo therapy session for me, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, like I said, if you have any questions, if you want to chat, DM me on Instagram, contact me on Facebook. You can always subscribe to the YouTube channel, share this podcast if you want, if you find it that it could be something that you want to share with your friends or your mom or your dad, whatever. And if you're listening right now on Apple Podcasts, I would say just give me a little rating, or give your 2 cents in the review section. Those kind of things really matter on a podcast. I know you've probably heard it from many other podcasters that those kind of things really make a difference for visibility purposes and for legitimacy purposes. And so again, this podcast is really for a resource, a free resource for singers and for singing students and vocal coaches to listen to, industry professionals talk about what they know. And I'm going to be also intermittently putting in these podcasts, solo podcasts of like my own personal experience as a musician and as a singer as well. So anyway, a last sip of this coffee before I leave you. Oh, Jesus, it's cold now. Oh, God. Okay, have a lovely day. Bye-bye.